different ways that Donald Trump hurt the American workers. Here are my hourly wage workers. Now I'm talking about my school crossing guards, wait staff, construction workers, sales folks, the lunch ladies, especially those of you who are thinking about voting for Donald Trump if you haven't voted already. Now you need to know, and I want you to know all the various different ways that Donald Trump has proven and shown that he is not a friend of the working class, that he actually goes out of his way to make sure that more of you are denied your ability to get overtime. And we all know that overtime is a way that you save for a car, that you save for a rainy day, that pays for your vacation. He actually works actively with the business community, with the business class, he's more interested in, to make sure that they be able to pay you the least amount of money. And he's actually said out of his face a $31,000 salary for a wage worker is too much money. Now, a billionaire said this. Yeah, I'm not telling you to vote for, but I do think that you deserve a leader who looks after your interests, and we want to learn from his last administration so we don't give him a chance to do it again. So welcome to the last in-depth video in this series on this channel, dedicated to the various different ways that Donald Trump has been a terrible person for the American populace and who does not deserve to be president again. So as in with the last video, and this video is going to focus on workers, the different ways Donald Trump hurt workers. The way I'm going to break this up is I'm going to tell you about things that Donald Trump has said and done for this election cycle. And then, because a lot of times his surrogates would get on television and say on cable TV, oh, Donald's just being Donald. Let's not focus on what he says. Let's focus on what he's going to do for the future. We don't have to do that. We can look to the past and look the way that he governed when he was president. It can tell us what to expect for the future. So that's what we're going to do in this exercise. All right, you guys ready? Not only is he cognitively in decline, and we've seen it a lot while he's been stumping.
Lax law. Every one of my killer. We had the great. He would have never been able to get in. She stopped every single one of them. She was the border czar. Now she doesn't admit that. Whether you call her a czar or not, she was no czar because she really wasn't a czar.
But he's a wannabe dictator.
I have an Article 2 where I have the right to do whatever I want as president.
He's divisive, uses vitriolic, racist, sexist, xenophobic rhetoric on a regular. He's being propped up and puppeteered by billionaires who just want a tax cut and regulations for themselves. And he regularly denigrates women, people of color, migrants, immigrant, non-white communities, and large swaths of the American population. We know during his 4 years that he instituted policies that hurt families, black families, farmers, workers. He promised to bring manufacturing jobs. He did not promise make do on a lot of the promise he's made. But what he did do is give tax cuts to the rich, so much so that plummeted the country into a $7 trillion debt. He rolled back a lot of environmental protections, and he took away a lot of protections for various different human and civil rights, and as I'm going to say today, a lot of workers' rights. Also, during his term, we know that he bumbled the pandemic response, so much so that United States, compared to other industrialized nations, lost more lives. We lost more jobs. And he infamously, as recently reported, gave away critical COVID tests that were much needed at the time for America to Putin. And that's a problem. So let's start with the things that he said. Okay, so we know already, if you don't know, that Donald Trump favors companies and corporations. He's not a fan or interested in workers. When he was campaigning for the presidency the first time in 2015 on the debate stage, the question came up about salaries, whether we should have a minimum wage, a national minimum wage, whether we should have one. Donald Trump said on that stage that salaries are too high. At $15, people would get $31,000 a year. We all know no matter where you live, $31,000 a year is hard to live off of, especially if you have a partner or you have children or you have any responsibility, elderly relatives. And Donald Trump said, that's too high, a living wage. That's what he said.
Are you sympathetic to the protesters' cause, since a $15 wage works out to about $31,000 a year?
I can't be, Neil. And the reason I can't be is that wages too high. We're not going to be able to compete against the world. I hate to say it, but we have to leave it the way it is. People have to go out, they have to work really hard, and they have to get into that upper stratum.
So do not raise the minimum wage.
I would not raise the minimum.
There you go. We also know that he's not a fan of publics because he also, this election cycle says that he hated paying. And for those of you who are salary or wage workers, you know a lot of times you look forward to your overtime because you can do something. You can put that in your rainy day fund. You can actually put that towards getting a car or put that towards your home. Those, you look forward to your overtime pay. And Donald Trump says he hates giving overtime pay.
Well, don't give. I know a lot about overtime. I'd hated to give overtime. I hated it. I'd get other people, I shouldn't say this, but I'd get other people in, I wouldn't pay. I hated. This is going to lead to a lot quickly positive, but I'm not even doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because like the no tax on overtime, it's something so good, but no tax for the seniors. Do we have any
Not only is
seniors?
he not interested in you guys having higher wages or overtime pay, he also has said that it's a good idea for Detroit automakers, for example, to leave Detroit, Michigan, which is a swing state, and go down to the South where they're lower wage workers in order to avoid being, out competitive by those companies that leave the United States and go to Mexico. He says, well, don't go to Mexico, just go to other part of the place where you don't have to pay workers. So shutting down automobile plants in Detroit, Michigan to go to South. That's his idea of how to fix any problems in Michigan. And that's why that all the promises he made about manufacturing jobs, about the automotive industry, didn't pan out because he has that attitude. This cycle, we also know infamously that he praised Elon Musk for firing striker workers. He said, oh, they're striking. Elon, you're a great firer. His whole catchphrase on The Apprentice was, you're fired. So for someone who's a worker, that's like the worst nightmare, because when you have bills to pay, when you have a family, when you have kids in school, when you have other responsibilities, to be fired is a horrible thing. He praised Elon Musk for firing people. He's not a fan or a friend of workers. Also, infamously, he derailed against Sean Fain, who is a really popular United Auto Workers president for brokering these wonderful deals for the workers. And he said he should be fired. And that's not really great for somebody who's trying to claim to be the president of populists. Like I said before, you don't necessarily need to go far and look to what he's going to do. You could look at his words today and then look at his past. Let's look at his past, shall we? Trump's National Labor Relations Board rolled back a lot of protections for workers, and he also packed the courts with judges that were pro-business, anti-workers. For the National Labor Relations Board, for example, rolled back an Obama-era policy that allowed workers to use company emails to organize. Under Trump, safety for workers were compromised because Trump underfunded OSHA, and there was reportedly a lot of fatalities in workplaces due to that understaffing, because they just, again, don't value workers or their lives or their safety. Under Donald Trump, the overtime rules were shifted so much that a lot of millions of workers got opted out and removed from being able to be eligible for overtime. Again, as you noticed in what he has said, he really doesn't like overtime, and he favors employers who may not want to pay a lot of overtime to their workers. So it all makes sense. It fits in. Donald Trump infamously gutted federal employees' unions, and it just made it hard for them to organize. So his big thing this year is tax on tips, like no tax on tips. But when Donald Trump was in office last time, he changed the rules so that he made it so it's possible for employers to take the tips of their employees that rely on tips. Like, he made it easier for them. Because again, as I've said before, he's all about the big businesses. He's not about the little guys or the workers at all. So this new tax on tips thing is an about face, but Trump also reversed an Obama-era restriction on companies that are labor law violators, that made them ineligible for federal contracts. Donald Trump made them eligible again because he cares more about the businesses than the workers than they hurt. There was an independent study that said that during Donald Trump's era that his administration put in so many cuts to healthcare, to childcare, these needs to get by day to day, and that overall hurt the average worker in America. In previous videos, I told you how Donald Trump only cares about the interests of businesses who want tax cuts and deregulation. So there was a regulation that required corporations takes the interests of their workers into account when they make decisions as a fiduciary. Donald Trump eliminated that altogether because he didn't care about workers. And then finally, under the Project 2025, there's a whole section of ways that the proposals in Project 2025 would undermine the abilities of workers to organize, for unions to thrive, and for workers to be protected. So those are just a small handful of some of the ways that Donald Trump, while he was president, while he was in office, his administration, his executive agencies include the National Labor Relations Board, OSHA, and various other different agencies under the executive branch, were given orders, so much so to actually suppress the ability for workers to thrive, to have benefits, to be able to make a living, workable wage, to able to get overtime, and just gutted a lot of their rights and their protections. He is not a friend of the worker. And so that's why a lot of people, including the manufacturers, because again, he promised to bring manufacturing jobs back, but he did not, have decided to just about face and just, again, he promised to bring manufacturing jobs back, but he did not, have decided to just about face and just, say, nah, that's okay, we're all good. They're either going to sit out, skip his name on a ballot, skip the presidential go down ballot, or they're going to vote for Kamala Harris. But they're not going down that route of putting him in power, knowing that he didn't make good on his promises. And actually, he made their lives difficult when he was in office. So there you have it, different ways that Donald Trump hurt the American workers. Now, again, I'm gonna put links to some of the sources that I used in this, that I got from this article. Someone recently told me that all you do is read headlines. Like, no, I find original sources. Sometimes the original sources for my information is in a video from Donald Trump saying it himself, or it is from a quote, or it's from a report. I try to use reports from the government or quotes from original sources because I know a lot of times people feel like the media spins and they call the media propaganda. There's a lot of distrust in journalism and media entities. So for those reasons, even though I might cite a paper, I do that and I leave you the headline with the date and the byline so you can go research further to look more into it because there's only but so much I can put into a video. So that's why I'm going to put the links down below. I mean, that's a weird criticism. Like, all you do is use someone's already investigated research. And yeah, so they talk about me spreading misinformation. No, I am actually providing information. That's the last video. I'm going to put a link up above and after this video so you can see the other videos in this series where I talk about the ways Donald Trump disrupted for Black families. He said a lot of anti-racist things, how he's just really not good for American people. So we're going to say no. We have 2 more days. We're almost over. The MAGA movement is over. We've had enough. Thank you very much. So long, sayonara. Let's turn the page, like Kamala said. And when we fight, we win. We're almost in the home stretch. And I'm just praying to God. I feel really, really great about this. Women are going to deliver. We got this. Let's go.